Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? It's me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia, and welcome to Fantasy Pros, the home of fantasy sports. It is me, it is Tags, it's Yates, and it's you, and it's NFL mock special time. Oh my goodness, we are almost there. We're getting closer and closer to the NFL mock draft season, and right now we are in it. The draft is just weeks away, and we've decided to hang out here, the three of us, with a very special guest to get you possibly what the NFL draft might indeed look like. And there's nobody better to bring in here for today's show than our good friend from the Fantasy Black Book, from In This League Podcast Network. It's the one, the only, Scott Bogman. Boggs, welcome to the program today, my friend.
Thanks for having me, boys. I am very, very excited to do a mock draft. I prepped a lot, and I'm ready to pick for these teams. And I'm actually glad I'm not representing my favorite team, the Steelers, because I would like to see someone else pick for them so I can get mad at the pick. You know what I mean? So I think that's the whole reason I would not want to pick for my team.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. It is great that this all worked out. This is going to be so much fun. So you're going to want to get a beer, pull up a chair, and just kind of hang out, watch and listen wherever you get your Fantasy Pros content from. Tags, how are you doing today? I know we had a lot of things to set up today. Are you feeling ready? Are you prepared to make these important decisions and play general manager for all these NFL teams?
I'm not going to lie. I'm stoked about the draft. I'm not stoked about where my microphone is right now. We had a pre-show meeting, and apparently I make out with my mic too much, and I was forced to push away, and I'm feeling a little bit distance, and I'm getting used to it. So if I'm not my usual self, just tell me to yell at Yates more or something.
I mean, you are so close to that microphone, you might as well just move with each other. I mean, it's just crazy sometimes, but yeah. We're all making adjustments here. We're doing new things. It's a very exciting time here at Fantasy Pros. Yates, how are you feeling about Mike's proximity to his microphone? Are you now comfortable? And is this something that you think is going to be beneficial for Tags as we go forward?
Well, it forces Tags to grow, and that's always a win. So yes, I think it's a good situation, but I did warn that the longer that the testing process went along, the more cranky Mike would get, Tags would get. Sorry, you said Mike, and then I went along with that. It's so weird.
It is his
but also,
name.
It's really nice. Yeah. It's really nice to be back on the podcast, guys. It's been like a month since I've been on. So, is it all right that I'm here?
I'm not gonna lie, Dan, no. It felt like you moved out and I had to move in with my microphone. So, I mean, it's good to have you back. I'll create some distance just to make you guys happy and ready to rock, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a brilliant domestic partnership between Tags and his mic. And I got to be honest with you. I think we're the ones that are jealous of you because I saw the pictures of Cancun and stuff. Look at you. Fancy, man, out on the beach, enjoying life. It's 20 degrees here in New Jersey. I think you've been winning. Let's just say that. Now, look, this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to go through team by team. The boys have decided to, kind of do a little round robin here. There are going to be some trades as well. So it's going to be live. It's going to be fun. It's going to be, look, all the football you could possibly handle. But before we get into anything, I want to also kind of just touch on a little giveaway contest that we're doing here at Fantasy Pros. So if you head to fantasypros.com/contest, you can win a Lamar Jackson autographed jersey. Oh my goodness. What? Thanks to our friends at PristineAuction.com. They are the best. They are giving away another jersey. We just had a giveaway last month. We're doing another one here for March. It's Lamar Jackson, so get in there while you can. All you have to do is go to fantasypros.com/contest, and what you do is you go to iTunes, you go to CastBox, Apple Podcast as it's called now, and you go to one of those two platforms. You go ahead and drop a review of the show, a Fantasy Pros podcast, and you screenshot it, you go back to the link, and then you drop it in there, and you are then, boom, all of a sudden you are now in this contest. So make sure you go to fantasypros.com/contest and get in there. Get in there for your Lamar Jackson signed jersey. Everybody wants one of those. I know I do. I certainly know that Bogman does. He loves Lamar. And I want to thank our friends at PristineAuction.com for setting all of that up. So, just to set the stage here, the first 10 picks, I hope I have this correct because this has been a long, long afternoon of setting this whole thing up. Tags is already cranky, but then again, I don't know any different version of him. I'm sure you don't either. So we've got Scott, because he's our guest, picking first. Tags and Yates. So Scott's going to be picking for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tags is going to be picking for the Jets, and Yates for the Dolphins. So let's start with you, Boggs. You are officially on the clock as the general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And my first question to you is, why did you hire Urban Meyer? That had to be somebody else.
Urban is just I've known him for a while and he's a good guy. So, that's why I hired him. Of course, there's no way I would have hired anyone else if I was the head coach or the general manager. So for head coach, but this is an easy pick. This is the easiest pick of the draft. For the last 3 years, the number one pick in this draft has been Trevor Lawrence, and it's not going to change now. I know there's been a lot of smoke screens and all that stuff about some people maybe having Zach Wilson or Justin Fields ahead of Trevor Lawrence, but he's the best prospect since Andrew Luck, who was the best prospect since Peyton Manning, who was the best prospect since John Elway. Yeah. So it's an easy line here. The Jaguars had problems on offense and defense last year. That's why they're picking number one. The Jets made a huge mistake by winning games. So the Jaguars take Trevor Lawrence in this spot.
Okay, so no surprise there. Trevor Lawrence goes number one, the franchise QB. I'm sure we all agree with everything Bogman said. This has been that guy. He is that transcendent quarterback. I know there's no such thing as completely can't miss, but my goodness, he feels very close to that. Now with the second pick, we have tags on the board for the New York Jets. New coach for them. I would say a much better hire, at least in my opinion. I'm very excited about Robert Saleh. So tags, where do the Jets go from here with the number 2 pick? They have a lot of options. So which way do you think they are going to go?
I want to be clear about this, is that if I ran the Jets franchise and if it was actually my pick, I would not handle things the way that the Jets are doing it. I would be taking the highest offer I have for the number 2 pick, because I do believe that Sam Darnold is a player you can build around. And Yates and I were in conversations prior to this about a trade for the number 2 pick. But after hearing the Jets basically say they're willing to field offers on Sam Darnold, it tells me everything that I need to know, that they're planning to stay in that spot. And so today I'm going to be selecting Justin Fields, quarterback out of Ohio State. A lot of people are talking about Zach Wilson, the fact that he's moved up the board so much, but I think there's a lot more projecting to do with Wilson than there is with Justin Fields, coming from the places they played, the competition they played against. So Justin Fields is someone that he fits NFL's, like what NFL is moving towards, that mobile quarterback that has an arm. He's got some accuracy. He's strong when it comes to his accuracy. There are a few things that he has to work on, but I do believe he's more of a prospect that's ready to come in and start right away, whereas Zach Wilson's more of like a guy that you have to do some projecting with him to get there. And I understand why some people want to do that, but ultimately the Jets are going to select a quarterback if they stay with this pick. And Justin Fields was the guy that was being talked about as the potential number 1 over Trevor Lawrence when we started going through the college playoffs. So I don't want to get too far away from this. Justin Fields, I do believe, should go over Zach Wilson. I do believe, and ultimately, that he will go over Zach Wilson.
Now, as Tag so astutely put, what we're trying to do here is give our best guess at where things are really going. So we are not going to just fly off the board and do whatever we want here. We're going to try to get this thing as right as we possibly can. And there's nobody better at getting these things right when it comes to college football and dynasty stuff than Mr. Yates. So, Yates, you're on the board now with Miami. And let's figure out where we go here with this 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, this is where we're going to see the first trade happen here in this mock draft. So Miami holding this number 3 overall pick. Thank you, Bill O'Brien. And so they're sitting here with the number 3 overall pick. The board doesn't match up with their needs at this point. So while they still have a ton of draft capital, I'm going to have them move out of here. I'm going to have Denver move up from number 9 overall, send away their 2021 first, a 2022 first, and then a 2021 second for the number 3 overall pick here. So that way they can get their quarterback. You look at Denver's roster, they do have a couple of needs on the defense that they could address, specifically corner, but also at this spot at 9, it's a risk if that player is going to be there, but they're not going anywhere. They're not competing in that division with Patrick Mahomes if they do not have a quarterback. So they invested heavily in wide receiver. They've got some solid running backs. Of course, they've got Noah Fant. Let's give them Zach Wilson out of BYU. Now, I don't have Wilson ranked above Fields or Trey Lance, but the NFL seems to. And so I'm going to line up with what the NFL seems to have here, and that is Zach Wilson going off the board here at number 3 overall.
Amazing. 3 quarterbacks going in succession here to start this draft. Very, very fun stuff. I got to tell you, it's not surprising either, because this is where we're at with the NFL. You either have the quarterback position or you don't. So I don't know if we're going to get this, but my goodness, this will be a fun discussion to have. 3 quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3 to start, which brings us back to Mr. Scott Bogman now with the Atlanta Falcons, another team that needs a quarterback. The question is, now that they're here at 4 and 3 went off the board, are they going to take a quarterback here, in your opinion, the way the board has shaken out so far?
I don't have a quarterback here. The Atlanta Falcons would be very, very disappointed with Justin Fields going here. I think he would be a perfect fit for Atlanta, but he went number 2 to the Jets. So I think in this spot for Atlanta, it's really time to work on this defense. And Joe, you and I have talked about how the Atlanta defense has been rough for a while. If you're at pick number 4, you can fill in some needs here, and Atlanta has plenty of them, obviously. But I think you want to go with BPA. And in my opinion, the BPA best player available here is Micah Parsons, a linebacker out of Penn State. So you get a leader in the middle of that defense to start rebuilding around it. The guy is going to help them. Last year, they had the 4th most total yards given up and the 4th most yards per play, 6.2 yards per play. Only Detroit, Jacksonville, and Houston were worse than them. So I think Micah Parsons comes in here and starts, not solidifies, but helps solidify this defense in Atlanta.
Well, I always say if you like arm tackling, you'll love the Atlanta Falcons secondary. That's what they do, and to have a physical presence there, the linebacking core would certainly be nice. Parsons, I think, would fit in very well there also. Tags, you are up now with the Cincinnati Bengals. A good start last year for them with Joe Burrow. Some signs of life from this organization at the end, too, beating Pittsburgh in that big game towards the end of the season. So where do they go from here? What do they need, in your opinion?
The second most important position on the football field outside of quarterback, left tackle. A tackle in general, and you just need to take care of that. Jonah Williams obviously missed his rookie season, played this year. They still have some needs. Can they move him over to right tackle? Penny Sewell out of Oregon, very, very young dude, but a very, very massive dude, and a guy that basically you have to protect your investment. And I think we saw what happens when you don't do that in 2020, where Joe Burrow leaves the year, leaves middle of the season with a season-ending injury because his offensive line can't protect him. Joe Burrow does have mobility. Is it going to take a hit after this? Yeah, most likely it will. They have to protect him. That's the number one thing. And on top of that, they have to run the ball better. Whether it be Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard, doesn't matter. Their running backs just haven't got the job done ever since Zach Taylor kind of took over there. So they have to rebuild this offensive line. Penny Sewell, is he the most NFL ready, like from the get-go? He's close, but at the same time, there's so much upside with him because I want to say he's just 20 years old. I mean, he's legitimately a kid that's growing, but he's a massive guy, and the NFL loves that. So protecting Joe Burrow should be their number one priority, and that's who they're going to go with here.
On to the number 6 spot now in the draft, and Yates is on the board with the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that clearly has made their transition away from Carson Wentz and looking for a new identity, perhaps with Jalen Hurts. It seems like maybe, unless perhaps GM Yates has something else in mind. I don't know. Yates, where do the Eagles go from here?
I absolutely think that quarterback is on the table here for Philadelphia at number 6 overall. There are a lot of people that are living in my Twitter mentions that seem to disagree, but I think that looking at the board and the way that it has shaken out, I'm not going to, in our first mock draft, give them another North Dakota State quarterback with Trey Lance on the board. So, no, I'm going to give them a huge position of need here, and that is wide receiver. I'm going to go with Jamar Chase. It's been a while since we've seen him on the field. Obviously opted out the 2020 season, but when he was on the field with Joe Burrow at LSU, my goodness, the numbers that he put up. We talk about Justin Jefferson all the time and the records and the production that he had his rookie season. Jamar Chase performed better than him last year, or 2 years ago. So I'm going to go Jamar Chase here. He is a extremely pro-ready prospect. You plug him in, he's going to compete or going to complement Jalen Hurts and give him a receiving weapon and complement Jalen Reagor pretty well. So Jamar Chase, number 6 overall, Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, game-changing wide receiver there for the Eagles. Now, Boggs, it's up to you. You're in there with Detroit, so I want to be careful. I'm once again questioning your coaching hire. I mean, I hope your kneecaps have some sort of protection on them because Dan Campbell wants to get a piece of both of them on his way up. And if you punch him in the face, apparently he's just going to smile. Mm-hmm. So while you're doing that, why don't you make a selection too while you're making sure you protect your knees and your face and everything else?
Yeah, I'm actually really disappointed in my ability to hire head coaches. So it hasn't been great so far with the franchises I have. But this is, Jamar Chase going 1 pick in front of the Lions, I think hurts a little bit. Obviously, my number 1 pick here for Detroit, I think probably would have been Micah Parsons. But since the quarterbacks went early, 2 wide receivers leaving for them and Kenny Galladay, who they might franchise tag, and Marvin Jones, who is obviously the cheaper option. So wide receiver is a big need, but the defense was horrific last year for Detroit. They gave up the most points on defense. They gave up more yards than any team as well, 6,716 yards, 3rd most passing yards, 5th most rushing yards given up. the second fewest takeaways of any team, the fourth most defensive penalties, third highest percentage of scoring drives given up, worst pressure percentage in the NFL. So that's where we're going to go with this pick. We're going to get a local product here and Kwity Paye, the edge defender out of Michigan, to put some pressure on the quarterback. The guy is an absolute beast. He's a freak of an athlete, and I think that Detroit would benefit greatly by adding him to the roster.
All right, so Paye goes to the Detroit Lions. That puts Tags on the clock with the 8th pick for the Carolina Panthers. I would say a productive first season for Matt Rule and company. So, Tags, where do you think they're going to go next for their needs?
I mean, it's no secret that they've been looking for a quarterback. We've heard their name surrounded with Matthew Stafford. We've heard their name continually, and it's still possible that they work out a trade for Deshaun Watson. So they're clearly in the market for a quarterback. Now, which quarterback is that? It makes sense for me to go with Trey Lance here. Mac Jones is a popular one that we're hearing, from scouts saying that his floor is pick number 8. I don't really buy that. I believe that Trey Lance is a guy that you could use as a transition between him, like Teddy Bridgewater. They still have him under contract for 2 more years. Now, they can keep him under contract this year, develop Trey Lance behind him, and then cut Bridgewater after 2021 with just a $5 million cap hit. That's what seems most likely to me. You have time to develop Trey Lance. You don't have to rush him into the starting lineup because there is some projection to his game. There is some things that you have to work on. So I do believe that he is the answer for the franchise, that they don't have to trade up. And again, they're getting an upside player while keeping Bridgewater on there, not taking a big cap hit and mortgaging away your future for someone like Deshaun Watson. So I think ultimately Trey Lance makes the most sense here for them.
I got to say, the more tape I watch on Trey Lance, the more I like him and the more I think he's worth the risk. I really do. I think that you could have one of these special talents potentially. And yeah, there's a little bit of project in there, but there was project in Josh Allen. And if you get the project right, look what becomes of them.
Yep.
So I think that's okay. And if you're going to do it, don't wait. That's the thing. It's like, if you think that guy is on the board and you're looking for that next quarterback, take him there. Don't wait till next year or the year after and see how things shake out. The future is now if you're looking for quarterback. The future is also now for Mr. Yates, who's on the board at 9, because this is that swap, which means now this is where Miami is picking. So, Southern Florida, Mr. Yates, you're back on the beach again where you were just before the show started. So tell me, where do they go here, the Dolphins, with this number 9 pick overall?
Yeah, I talked about it, number 3 overall, that the board didn't exactly line up with Miami's needs. Well, they need a wide receiver, and I'm looking at 2 wide receivers here from Alabama that can reunite with Tua Tagovailoa. So it's between Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. Both of these guys in my grading system actually graded out the exact same, so it doesn't help me here at all, but I'm going to go with the more explosive player, which I believe is Jalen Waddle. When you're looking at Jalen Waddle on the field, just moves at a different speed than everyone else, is like the Flash out on the football field, and also is a well-rounded player, can go up and high point the football deep downfield. You can get him the ball at every level. So Jalen Waddle, number 9 overall, reunited with Tua Tagovailoa and form a nice receiving core there with Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Mike Gesicki.
I'm a sucker for a good narrative. I love this. This is a beautiful thing. I like what you've done here. They can take all the team photos together now. It's going to be beautiful things. They can wear their Alabama stuff, and then they can wear their Miami stuff together and do that whole thing. Everyone's going to love that. And every single time they're playing on a broadcast, it's national, they're going to show the picture of them together in college and the picture of them together in the pros, because that's what you do. All right, let's end this first segment here with number 10. It's back to you, Boggs, for the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? What do they need here at the 10 spot before we hit a little break?
Yeah, they need a lot of pieces here. And there's no way I'm going to get any crap for whoever I pick for the Cowboys, right? So this is a really difficult one because to me it comes down to between, do I want to protect my investment because they're about to drop a whole bag on Dak Prescott. Like, he is going to get a ton of money. Mm-hmm. So do I want to protect him, or do I want to stop the leaking in that secondary? And I think that's where I'm going to go with this pick. I'm going to take Patrick Surtain, the cornerback out of Alabama here for the Cowboys, because that is the thing that I hear Cowboys fans complain about the most. Obviously, Dak goes down with the busted ankle last year. You do want to protect him, and Slater is a good pick here. So it's a tough pick between those two, but I think I'm going to take Patrick Surtain just because he's higher on my board.
All right, so let's recap here. Number 1 overall, Trevor Lawrence. Number 2, to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Number 2, to the New York Jets, Justin Fields. Then we have Zach Wilson going to the Denver Broncos via trade with the Dolphins. Atlanta with Micah Parsons. At linebacker, Cincinnati with Sewell, getting that O-line shored up. Then you have Jamar Chase for the Eagles over at the 6th pick. At 7, Scott took Paye for the Detroit Lions. Then Lance goes, the quarterback, to the Carolina Panthers. Waddle, the wide receiver, to the Miami Dolphins. And, of course, Surtain to the Dallas Cowboys. So, very good first 10 picks. We're moving briskly. This is great fun. I love it. We've settled in, and I mean, honestly, you guys should all be considered for general manager spots. This was very well thought out. I like what we've done here. Who knows? Maybe someday more of us fantasy nerds will be in front offices. I hope so. I want that to be the case. I want to take a minute, though, to just acknowledge our friends at PristineAuction.com, one of our sponsors here. Incredible site. Great stuff there, and it's not just sports stuff. They do have amazing sports stuff for your man cave, for your lady cave, all those fun things. You can bid on autographed jerseys. You can bid on cards, which are the hottest thing right now. But it's also got lots of fun Marvel things. Lots of fun pro wrestling stuff. So many great things at PristineAuction.com that you can get in and get into bidding on. They are authentic. They're affordable. And I got to tell you, here at Fantasy Pros, we have a little code where you get a free $5 credit. So when you go to PristineAuction.com and put in Fantasy Pros, you get $5 credit towards your first bidding process. So get in there right now. Go to PristineAuction.com. Again, that's PRISTINE.com, and get in on some good stuff for your home or for your collection of whatever memorabilia you want to bring in to the home. Now, for Tags, obviously he wants to bring in more microphones because he has a problem. So let's start with you, and let's see if that's where you're going to go. Who knows? Maybe he'll take a microphone for the Giants, who are now going to pick things up here at number 11 overall. Tags, you are on the clock. What do the G-men do with this pick here right outside the top 10?
You know what? We've been hearing whispers. We heard the whispers last offseason. We're hearing them again about them trying to trade away Evan Ingram. And it really does make a whole lot of sense in terms of the player that's on the board right now, Kyle Pitts out of Florida. He's a stud. I mean, through and through. I don't think that anybody would dispute that. And I think it's possible that a team like the Bengals at 5 would consider Kyle Pitts if Penny Sewell were off the board by that point, like say Miami were to take him at 3. But having him fall here to 11, it's a scenario that I didn't see as the Giants. So, you know, them getting on the board, it was between a wide receiver like Devontae Smith or Kyle Pitts. And Pitts is someone that I have no shame selecting here because I feel like he's a can't miss player. And then Evan Ingram is someone that you could deal away for a future pick.
All right, there you have it. So the tight end Pitts goes to the Giants. Washington actually looks like they're acquiring a pick here from San Francisco. Scott, I believe you are now up again because of this deal. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I have the Washington football team here, and I would be giving up the 119 and then the second round pick this year and a second round pick in the following year to acquire this pick. And for Washington, I'm going to give them the quarterback out of Alabama, Mac Jones. Obviously, big quarterback issues with Washington last season. Dwayne Haskins didn't work out. Kyle Allen got hurt. And, you know, they got the comeback player in the year and a great story in Alex Smith, but we've had some recent transgressions there, and he subsequently got released, probably more for the $19 million cap hit than what he actually said. But this team needs a QB, and Mac Jones probably needs to sit a little bit, so maybe Kyle Allen can get in there. Your boy Kyle, Joe, but maybe he can get in there for a couple weeks. Kyle. But Washington was 25th in points last year, third fewest total yards, 25th in passing yards, and they had a 1-to-1 touchdown to pick ratio, 16 passing touchdowns, 16 interceptions. That dog will not hunt, even in the NFC East. So let's get them a quarterback in here that can make the most out of this team.
Now, people are wondering, why did Bogman and Joe just say that? Well, it's because that there's a funny story we've told on shows before. Bogman and I have done literally thousands of shows together. It's a running bit where when I was living in South Philadelphia for a little while, a neighbor next door with that incredible South Philly accent had a little boy named Kyle, and he was always in the street with her Philadelphia accent. And she said, "Kyle, get in the house. What are you doing? Kyle, come in. You want a Coke? Kyle, come on in." Now, from one Kyle to another, Yates, you were at San Fran. You were willing to make this deal. I want to get you in on some of this and just talk to what the thought process is and why you traded out from this spot.
Yeah, with the top 4 quarterbacks off the board, I think that if one of those guys fell, if Trey Lance fell to number 12 overall, then I could absolutely see John Lynch pulling the trigger. But the difference between Mac Jones at this point versus Jimmy Garoppolo, who they have under contract, it wasn't enough for me to pull the trigger there. And now I can trade down. And you look at San Francisco, they have a ton of needs that they have to address on the defense with the salary cap situation. So get down, get a couple of extra picks here, and let Washington come up for their quarterback.
All right, that's back to you now, Boggs. Again on the board for the Chargers. You're just picking guys all over the place. So Mac Jones goes there to Washington, now to the Chargers. They don't have a problem at quarterback. So where do you go here for the needs of this squad here for LA?
You go to the offensive line for LA, and you add a big tackle out of Northwestern, Rashawn Slater. They had the ninth fewest yards in the NFL, but the third lowest yards per rush, and tied for the third fewest rushing touchdowns last year. Obviously, a little bit of that comes from the running back position with Austin Eckler being banged up last season, but I think that adding a big tackle to not only protect Justin Herbert, but help in that running game too, is probably priority A number one for the Chargers. So give me Rashawn Slater, the big tackle out of Northwestern for them.
Well, that brings us to the number 14 pick and the Minnesota Vikings. So Tags, you are now on the board for the Vikes. Disappointing year for the Vikes, certainly on defense as well. That defense kind of fell apart. So is this a defensive pick, or are they going to continue to look for some more offensive pieces?
No, it has to be on the defense here. Edge was a real problem last year for them, and Danielle Hunter, him being opting out for the season, or not opting out, dealing with an injury, him being out for the season, it like basically put a magnifying glass on all that and said, wow, you have nothing behind him. So basically they need to add some talent there. And Gregory Rousseau is someone that is considered raw, but at the same time, because he has a small body of work, you really just don't know if there's some bust potential there. Jalen Phillips is someone that stepped into his place and played extremely well. And I would not be shocked if they put Phillips over Rousseau on the draft board. But right now I'm keeping Rousseau here as someone that they're going to select to pair with Danielle Hunter. And all of a sudden their edge needs are slowly disappearing.
So edge needs there for Minnesota. New England needs some playmaking. There's a few playmakers still left on this board. Yates, does New England pick one up here and finally get somebody to change some momentum for them? Because it has been a long time since the Patriots had a playmaker on offense.
Yeah, New England's going to get a ton of reinforcements back with their opt-outs from 2020 coming back on the defensive side of the ball. So while I think they could look at a guy like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who would be a ton of fun with Bill Belichick and lining up all over that defense, that's not where I'm going to go. I'm going to focus on the offense, and I'm going to give them Devontae Smith here, wide receiver out of Alabama. Not afraid to go over the middle of the field and make contested catches. A speed demon can be used at every level of the field too. So Devontae Smith here to pair with, is it Cam Newton playing quarterback?
No, please don't say those things. Someone
else?
Please don't do that to me. Yates, come on. You know I'm getting old. I mean, you can't say Cam Newton again to me as a Patriots fan. Not again.
Well, whoever is going to be playing quarterback for the New England Patriots, it's not Tom Brady. Sorry, Joe. They're going to need someone to catch the ball. So I'm going to give him Devontae Smith here at 15.
Now, Yates, do you have any concern that they are going to be potentially gun shy because of the whole N'Keal Harry badness?
Well, I mean, it was.
You don't hold on a second. You don't get analysis like that anywhere. His badness. Tax. That is extraordinary.
I don't know how else to put it at this point.
I can't wait for the badness list from Mike Tagliere on Fantasy Pros to pop up at some point. Go ahead. Now try to answer that, Yates.
I think it had been a long time since New England had taken a receiver in the first round before N'Keal Harry, and now we can look back with hindsight and say N'Keal Harry probably wasn't the smartest pick to make based on what we've seen in the NFL. But you also had Tom Brady at that point. You had Rob Gronkowski. You had Julian Edelman for the longest time, so the receiver need wasn't as glaring. Now you look at their receiving core, it's Jacoby Myers, it's N'Keal Harry, it's Julian Edelman, who might not even be back next year healthy to play. So they need to invest in receiver. I'm going to give him Devontae Smith.
All right, Scott Bogman, you live in Arizona, and now so does J.J. Watt, and you've got the pick here. So Arizona Cardinals on the clock at number 16. Where do they go? They've got another defensive piece now that Watt has signed, but what is it that you think they need besides perhaps a different coach? Because I know you are not too fond of Cliff Kingsbury's calling at certain times.
Yeah, I mean, particularly on the defensive side, and they gave up, over 2,000 rushing yards last year. Obviously, that has been helped by the addition of J.J. Watt. They're going to unretire number 99 for him, so he's going to be happy in the desert. And there's been rumblings of a Kyler Murray deal for Deshaun Watson, too. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's always interesting to hear on the local radio. But I think the big thing that they need here is someone to replace Patrick Peterson. He did not play very well last year. There are some good corners on the board here. So I'm going to give them Caleb Fairley, the big, tall cornerback out of Virginia Tech. This team also gave up the 7th most yards after the catch last season and were third most defensive penalties with 104. Only Philly and Denver had more defensive penalties than the Arizona Cardinals last year. So I think he's going to help them stop some of this bleeding. And when you're playing the Cardinals, they're going to pass the ball a lot and score a lot of points. And they're going to have to protect against the pass to go point for point with teams. So I think Caleb Fairley helps them out a ton here.
All right, so fairly to the Cardinals at 16. Now we're on to pick number 17, and it's the Las Vegas Raiders. And Tags, you're on the board for this one. So, last year they took Henry Ruggs early. Some injuries kind of derailed him a bit. But look, the Raiders, once again, 2 years in a row, kind of a fringy playoff team. So what can they do here to kind of put them over the hump?
When did John Gruden's name become injuries? I want to know when that happened.
I don't know.
So no, the pick here, it makes the most sense in the world. And I keep going back to this. If he's on the board, it should be their selection. It's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker out of Notre Dame. I say that because he used to play safety. He plays linebacker now. He has the athleticism to cover like a cornerback. All of these positions are needs for the Raiders. Like they are all needs. And he's a crazy athlete, which is something that Mike Mayock always covets, obviously.
Yes.
So let's please make up for that first round pick last year and pick a player that actually fits what you guys need. Owusu-Koramoah, I think this would be a fantastic pick for him.
All right, so Yates, you got back-to-back now because of the deal. So let's start with the number 18 pick in the Miami Dolphins first before we go on to San Francisco after that trade with Washington. So Miami's on the clock, 18. Where do they go?
Yeah, with Miami now making their second selection, they went with Alabama at number 9 overall with Jalen Waddle. Let's go right back to Alabama and let's give him Najee Harris, running back out of Alabama.
Man.
So
maybe you should
Najee
draft
Harris,
Nick Saban while they're at it.
Right. Well, that's already happened. So
That's true.
With Miami and Tua Tagovailoa specifically, they need to surround him with talent. They've got a solid and young offensive line already. They need guys to take some steps forward. I think with their surplus of draft capital in a deep offensive line class, you could also double down in the second round and grab another offensive tackle or interior offensive lineman. And the defense is performing at an extremely high level already. So let's focus on a position of need here. Let's get Najee Harris in here to take some pressure off of Tua and make life easy on him. And again, the continuity, just surround him with the players that he knows already, build around Tua, and Najee Harris is the best way to do that.
I think this is brilliant. I think this is fantastic. I love the continuity concept. I think it also helps for a kid who, let's be honest, I think the confidence was a little shaken last year for Tua. When you have Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of breathing down your neck, especially with that long beard of his at times, it can be uncomfortable. And I think giving him pieces that he's familiar with, they speak the same language about things. I think that is very important from a football confidence standpoint to make Tua somebody you feel good about going into 21. Love this. Love Harris and Waddle along with Tua. So that puts San Francisco now on the clock at 19. So after this trade, they've moved down. Are they happy with what's there now remaining for them?
They are. You look at the interior of the offensive line, that's a position of need for San Francisco. I'm going to give him Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC. He does have the ability to play both outside and inside. So Elijah Vera Tucker, who can move well on his own. You're talking about the outside zone runs that Kyle Shanahan deploys with his running backs, and then providing some stability there for Jimmy Garoppolo, who will be the quarterback next season, right, with this scenario playing out. So Elijah Vera Tucker, if they do move on from Trent Williams, if Trent Williams leaves in free agency, he can step right into that left tackle position. If not, he can kick inside. So Vera Tucker here at number 19 overall.
Very good. Let's hit the 20 pick before we hit a break. Your Chicago Bears. Oh, Tags, I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse for you, but maybe it's a blessing. Let's say it's a blessing. Let's say you get a chance to live out a fantasy here as GM for the Bears. Do you think that you are ready to make this pick? Have you had enough time to think about it in your head?
I've had some time to think about it. And Yates is trying to encourage me to go in a certain direction right now.
I couldn't tell because for those of you who are not here, we just want to live behind the curtain. We're going to pull the curtain back in giant letters on the spreadsheet here that we're working off for this mock. Yates has written a name, and I want to say the font is 751. It's very large. We'll see if this is exactly what Tags thinks it's going to go. But Tags, no matter how big the font, it's still your pick regardless. So where do you want to go?
You know what's funny is that there's two players I was considering here, and Rashad Bateman was one of the players I was considering. However, after hearing the Bears press conference yesterday, and it seems very likely that they're going to franchise tag Allen Robinson, this team is under so much pressure to win right now between Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. They have to make a pick that's going to have an impact right now. And if they're going to have Allen Robinson, he takes care of that number one wide receiver role. Rashad Bateman, while I would love the pick, if they were going to move on from Allen Robinson, right now I'm operating under the assumption that we're going to have Allen Robinson on the team. So I'm going to take Jalen Mayfield, offensive tackle out of Michigan. When I watch offensive tackles play, what I want to see is a guy that is willing to give it his all, a guy that gives effort on every single play, a guy that's not afraid to drive a defender into the ground and legitimately just jump on top of him. he has that mentality. He has that grinder mentality. And the only way that the Bears are going to be able to make this work with Allen Robinson is by cutting some salary. And that might be Bobby Massey, their starting right tackle right now. So you'd be able to slot in Mayfield right there at right tackle, continue to run the ball well like they did towards the end of 2020, protect the quarterback, whoever that might be. Nick Foles, Alex Smith.
No.
It's all going to be bad just because of the quarterback situation, but they do have to start rebuilding for the future. And if Robinson's on the team, I think it would make sense to go offensive line here.
All right, so to recap, we have the Giants at 11 going with a tight end Pitts. We have Washington going quarterback with Jones, then Slater to the Chargers, Russo to the Minnesota Vikings at 14. At 15, the Patriots finally getting a playmaker in Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner. Fairley at Arizona for number 16. Awasu, I'm saying it incorrectly. I apologize, Jeremiah. You're a wonderful man. Karamoa. Las Vegas Raiders, then Najee Harris being reunited with Tua as well. All the Alabama boys hanging out with Miami at 18. Vera Tucker to San Francisco at 19. And Mayfield to Mike's Bears. And just for everybody to know, this was not the name that was in 785 font. It was a different name, so we'll see. Maybe Yates picks that name next. But before we get to the next names, as we finish up the first round of the NFL Draft mock right here on Fantasy Pros, I want to talk to you guys about Air Medcare Network. It's a medical emergency situation, and whenever those arise, and they do, Air Medcare Network can be there for you, okay? This is a very important service. You could join today and never pay a dime for your medical flight when flown by AMCN provider. Insurance doesn't always cover the full cost of a medical emergency, so this is a great way to secure financial peace of mind. So memberships cost as little as $85 for your entire household. And right now at Fantasy Pros, as a listener of us here on Pros, you'll get up to a $50 Visa or Amazon gift card with a new membership. So what you do is you go to visitairmedcare.com/Fantasy Pros and use the offer code Fantasy Pros. And no matter where you are at the time in the game of life, Air Medcare Network and that membership is going to be there to protect you and the ones you love. So once again, that is airmedcarenetwork.com//Fantasy Pros and use the offer code Fantasy Pros. So let us try to wrap things up here. Picks 21 through 32. We've done very well so far. I love the pace. I love what we're doing. We hope you're enjoying it also. That brings us to the Indianapolis Colts. Yates, you are on the board here. They got a new quarterback, a new lease on life for Carson Wentz. So the offensive line's already good. Defense is pretty good. I feel like the board is basically theirs if you're the Colts. Where do you see the need for Indianapolis?
Yeah, well, wide receiver becomes a position of need with T.Y. Hilton likely to leave in free agency. So I definitely could go that way with guys like Rashad Bateman or Kadarius Toney or, some of those guys that are still on the board. But I am going to go left tackle here. And I'm going to focus on a guy because we're doing this as the way that the NFL GMs would probably do it. Then I'm going to go with Christian Darrisaw, who tags or whoever is repeating my strategy and enlarging the font there. I am going to go with Christian Darrisaw. If this was me making the pick, I would be going with Tevin Jenkins, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma State, someone who I'm a big, big fan of. So, but Christian Darrisaw, he allows you to step in and replace Anthony Costanzo there at the left tackle position and just be that, that cornerstone piece for the next decade to protect Carson Wentz. So Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech, offensive tackle.
Great pick.
Yeah, there you go. Look, I'm all about that. It's already a good offensive line, just gets better. Why not? Tennessee Titans at the number 22 pick. Scott Bogman, Titans playoff team 2 years in a row. Certainly some things they can get better at. I would imagine edge rushing is something you'd like to improve on. I know they tried with Clowney. Experiment, I think, did not work. So where do you go from here if you're the Titans?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, Joe. I mean, the third fewest sacks in the NFL with 19, second worst pressure percentage behind only the Detroit Lions last year. So edge rusher is absolutely the biggest need for the Tennessee Titans at this point. I'm going to give them Jalen Phillips, the edge rusher out of Miami. He can also kick inside a little bit. He's a big boy, 6'5", 260 pounds. Big dude, and they need to get to the quarterback. They gave up a lot of passing yards too because they just put no pressure on NFL QBs, so they got to get an edge rusher here, and I think Jalen Phillips is the best one on the board for them.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's the need. It's so clear, so we'll see if this is how it shakes out when we get to the real draft in a few weeks. The New York Jets now back on the clock, and that means you, Tag. So you've got your Justin Fields. Now you got another pick here, number 23 overall. What do you do to add to the offense with Fields, or are you going a little on the defensive side of the ball?
I just want to say, like, while doing this show, it's making me psyched for our NFL draft coverage.
Yeah, man.
We're
Likewise.
gonna be doing the live draft show this year. If you guys weren't a part of it last year, hang out with us. We talk about everything from a fantasy perspective, from a team perspective, give our oohs and ahs and what the Fs. Yates and I had a lot of those moments last year, but
Packers drafting Jordan Love.
Oh yeah, that was one.
Classified that, yeah.
But this pick makes the sense to go back to the defensive side of the ball. They need to under the new regime there. Jason Oweh, edge out of Penn State. He's someone that I love. He's a little bit undersized, but he can put on some weight. I'm hearing rumors that he's going to run a 4.3 in the 40, which means if you have an edge defender like that could put on some weight, lower that speed a little bit just to add some weight. I believe the upside with this kid is it's up there with a top 10 pick. So it's like getting him here with the Jets. I believe they obviously can use an edge rusher. They're going to be transitioning over to a 4-3 defense. So Jason Oweh out of Penn State, I think he's going a little under the radar right now, but I love this pick for him.
I've heard a lot about Oweh in the last few weeks. All of a sudden, I've seen a lot of chatter about him. So this seems very possible that he could make it all the way up here. Yep. Pittsburgh now on the clock, and this is killing Boggs because he is Mr. Steeler. Like, you literally... Again, Boggs and I are friends for a very long time, done thousands of shows together, literally. And you cannot like do a show if there's a Steeler game on with Boggs. You can't go near him. You can't talk to him before or afterwards. It is a thing. So I just want to tell you, Yates, when you make this pick, just be very careful and you might have to duck afterwards.
Sounds great. Well, you're looking at Big Ben returning for next season, and if that's the case, then you got to invest in the offensive line, and you got to do it with a guy who is ready to step in right away. You can't draft a project offensive tackle or anything like that, so I'm going to give them Tevin Jenkins here. Liam Eichenberg is also another player that I would consider out of Notre Dame, but I talked about how much of a fan I am of Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State. He steps right in here. You've got some needs. You've got some players vacating those tackle spots here. Tevin Jenkins just makes a ton of sense for a team. If Big Ben is returning, which all indications are, then you got to do everything you can to make sure that this team can continue to compete in their win now window. So Tevin Jenkins here at 24 overall.
I see Boggs is nodding his head. He seems he is in approval of this. This is good. Yates, you've really, this is good stuff here. I like it. We can all come together. Boggs, you're nodding in approval. You like this, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have no money at all to re-sign anyone. So Villanueva's gone. So you got to have Jenkins in there, or Eichenberg, like Yates said there. You got to protect Big Ben.
Here's a question for you. Now, as a Steelers fan, my question is this. I know it's not going to happen because they're in the same division, but Orlando Brown, if you were able to get Orlando Brown for that pick at 24, would you do it as a Steelers fan?
Yep. I'd pull that trigger.
Wow, no hesitation.
That's
hesitation.
No, that's reportedly what Baltimore wants. They're asking a first round pick, and nobody has jumped up yet. But I think Pittsburgh is a team that would make sense for them to do it. But again, I don't think Baltimore wants to trade in division.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen because of the in division. But yeah, every single offensive lineman, every single player in the draft is a risk. So we've seen Orlando Brown play at the NFL level before, and he's pretty solid. So I would absolutely do that. But yeah, like you said, I don't think it's going to happen because it's Baltimore.
All right, enough Steeler talk. Let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Boggs, you're on the clock right now. You had a pick at 1. You got another pick at 25. So are you going to protect Trevor Lawrence, or are you going to go for a toy for him, or maybe some defense?
I'm going to go with some defense with this pick. I think, like we said before, Jacksonville just has a ton of needs, obviously picking number 1 overall. But, this is the pick that they acquired from, one of the picks that they acquired from the Rams in the Jalen Ramsey trade. So let's go ahead and replace him, which is not something I usually like doing, a trade for the position that you traded away from, because then you're going to be compared against that player for the rest of your career, which isn't really fair to the draftee. But J.C. Horn out of South Carolina is a very, very solid cornerback. And I think that Jacksonville really needs to shore that up, among many other things, of course. But I think he's probably the best player on the board that fits for them. So give me J.C. Horn, the CB out of South Carolina.
There you go, a cornerback for the Jaguars, which puts the Cleveland Browns on the clock at number 26. So, Tags, Browns were a playoff team last year. Browns played well towards the end of last year, kind of found their way a little bit. Great game there against the Steelers, Boggs, earmuffs. But where do you want to go here with Cleveland. Clearly, a lot of needs, I would say, for this team also, despite the fact they were in the playoffs.
They are, yes, but they also had some injuries. They lost their early second round pick, safety, like last year, and before this even started, they didn't have him on the field. But the biggest thing for me with them is they need linebackers, but that it feels like it might be a reach a little bit to go for one here. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go on the defensive line, because if you take away Myles Garrett, they have zero. They have nothing. And if you look at last year, like, we've seen Larry Ogunjobi. We've seen him actually have flashes of like what could be a dominant player, but then he disappears at other times, and you're like, all right, well, now he's a free agent, and you have a reason to move on. So I'm going to go with Christian Barmore, defensive lineman out of Alabama. This is a monster of a man. I'm a grown man myself, and there are not many.
That's debatable.
There are not many men in this world that I just would run from, and I would say, "Don't touch me." He's one of them. I mean, that dude is just a monster. Now, he's not a polished prospect just yet. There's things he needs to work on, especially against the run. But as a pass rusher, whew, you do not want that guy coming after you. So just to add some intimidation on that defensive line, Barmore is considered a high upside prospect.
Yates, give me your take on Barmore, because this is a guy that was been talked about quite a bit, and a lot of what Tags is saying is true. It's the upside. Do you see that with Christian Barmore?
Yeah, absolutely. The upside's absolutely there. However, it's the consistency, right? Throughout the regular season for Alabama was kind of non-existent, and then you got to the college football playoff and he turned it on, and you couldn't look away from watching Barmore on the interior. So with Cleveland, you put him right next to Myles Garrett and just let them go to work. I think it's a perfect spot. I actually highlighted that before Tags even started talking. I highlighted Christian Barmore because I knew he was going to go after him.
Yep. All right, so that's put you on now the clock with the Baltimore Ravens, Yates, at number 27. So now that he is off, where do they go?
Yeah, I think you could look at offensive tackle if they are going to move on from Orlando Brown. However, that hasn't happened yet. You look at their edge group, and you have a ton of guys who are barreling towards free agency. I don't think that they're going to be able to retain all of them, including Matthew Judon. So looking at the edge group, I'm going to throw a name out here that I just finished scouting the other day. Joe Tryon out of Washington. Big fan of his game. Polished prospect already, has fantastic size, opted out of the 2020 season. If he did play, I think we would have a ton of more hype surrounding him. I think he can absolutely push his way into the back end of the first round. By the time that we get to the end of April, he might even be pushing his way into the top 20 picks. So Joe Tryon here for Baltimore fills a huge need at the edge position.
Wow, good pick there. All right, the New Orleans Saints are up next at number 28. So Boggs, that's you. New Orleans, another disappointing finish in the playoffs. Yet again, it seems to be the MO of the New Orleans Saints, unfortunately. So a team that could be in a big transition depending on where things end up. So where do you think the Saints will end up going with this pick when all said and done?
Yeah, there's no quarterbacks here, and looks like they're going to go with Jameis Winston. I hope the Taysom Hill experiment is over with. I'm tired of seeing that, mainly for fantasy purposes. But I think that Malcolm Brown's probably going to be a cut for them, and they're going to need another nose tackle. So I'm going to give them this guy's name, Levi Onwuzurike from Washington, the big nose tackle there. It's a tough call between him and Tommy Togiai out of Ohio State. They're both kind of in this range here, but I've seen way more Saints centric mock drafts have Levi for them. So I'm going to have him as the big interior defensive line replacement for Malcolm Brown after he is cut to save some cap room. They're in cap hell right now, the Saints are.
Yeah, a lot of teams in cap hell right now, that's for sure. Green Bay Packers came close, but close is no cigar when it comes to the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers will be back, no surprise there. So Tags, will the Green Bay Packers take another quarterback this year, right? I mean, why not? That's what they do. Let's take something that's not going to help at all, right? Let's do that. Are they going to finally help Aaron Rodgers? And is there a piece out there right now, in your opinion, that can help him?
So, I mean, of course, there's always something that you could do to help, but you have to ask yourself a question is like, so do you want to capitalize on your strengths or you want to address your weaknesses? When you go back to this team, what couldn't they do last year? They couldn't stop teams. They couldn't stop Tom Brady. I don't know why they gave the ball away. We can get into that all day long. But the bottom line is they need defensive help. And wide receivers, this is a relatively deep class. There is Rashad Bateman that's still here that it feels like it'd be fine, but Again, I want a player who can contribute right now in this defense that can give us a boost, and I'm going to go with my best defensive tackle in this class from an NFL-ready standpoint, Davion Nixon out of Iowa. That dude's going to be a monster. I love him. And I think that he's actually been undervalued in this draft class. And if he, for some reason, falls into the second round, I think some team is going to get a steal. I think he fits this 3-4 defense on a defensive end standpoint, that he would make a difference right away for a team that's gone to back-to-back NFC championships. They need to do something that is going to help them right now. And I think he's that player.
They should do something to help themselves right now. What can the Buffalo Bills do, Yates, to help themselves right now? Because, look, they are very close. I think in a lot of ways you can look at them as maybe even the favorites in the AFC. I know it sounds crazy, but, I mean, look, I think it was a disappointing end there for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think there was a little exposure with that game plan that they were able to put together there with Tampa in that defense to really stop that Kansas City Chiefs attack. And I wonder how it's going to be copied. That being said, Buffalo is in a great position. It was a big learning curve for them, and they passed a lot of tests. So where does Buffalo go with this number 30 overall pick?
Well, the popular picks, and you look at their positions of need, they're linebacker, opposite of Matt Milano, who is heading towards free agency,
right,
and then Tremaine Edmonds. They need a pass coverage linebacker. Corner 2 is a big need, opposite of Tre'Davious White. But I'm also looking at the fact that Buffalo was in the conference championship, played Kansas City, and there's a wide receiver that should not be on the board right now that I do not want to get to Kansas City, and that's Rashad Bateman. So I'm weighing these options, right? Do I take the position of need and maybe reach for a corner? Because there's not a corner that I love here at this spot. There are a couple of linebackers of Zaven Collins and Nick Bolton that I could look at, but I'm not giving them Rashad Bateman. So I'm going to go Bateman here. Wow. And if Buffalo does move on from John Brown, which it is reported that they're going to do, then Bateman, Stephon Diggs, and Cole Beasley underneath. For Josh Allen, keep a strength. We talk about it all the time where, we talked about Indianapolis and reinvesting in the offensive line. If that is your strength, then build on that. And for Josh Allen, who took a major step forward with Stephon Diggs, give him a polished receiver again with Rashad Bateman on the opposite side. So I actually the more that I talk through this, the more I like Bateman here to Buffalo.
I love it. Are you surprised?
So Joe, this felt it felt like a little bit like a fantasy football move where it's like, I didn't want this guy to get this player, so I drafted him. And I understand like talking through it, but Gabriel Davis was really good in a limited role, even stepping in for John Brown. Now there's crazier things that happen in the NFL draft, but Yates, this one's ballsy.
Bateman, in my opinion, Bateman is a top 15 prospect in this class.
Agreed. He's my number.
So
I think
for
he's
him
number
to
11.
still be here,
Bogman, do you agree with that too? Is Bateman a top 15?
He's great. Yeah,
yes.
He's very, very good. So I mean, I did not expect him to go to the Bills, though. I'm with Tags on that.
Are you guys collectively surprised that he lasted as long as he hasn't? Like every year, somebody falls. So Bogman, let's start with you, and we'll go around. Are you surprised that Bateman has fallen to where he has in this draft, in particular? Yeah,
I mean, I thought that his floor was kind of to Green Bay, so that's where I saw Bateman going. But I mean, wherever he lands, he lands. He's going to end up being a great wide receiver. So he's going to be great in Buffalo, and he's going to push Beasley and Gabe Davis out for sure. Not out, but to lesser roles, of course, very, very quickly. So it's a great pick for Buffalo. It's just not a huge need for them. So it was a surprise to me.
And Tags, you were somebody who was looking at, you were looking at the giant font of Bateman that Yates was trying to tell you to take for the Bears. You passed on Bateman there. So are you surprised that he's fallen at this point in terms of stock?
A little bit. I thought Baltimore was the landing spot instead of Tryon there. Just because Baltimore, we've heard Baltimore say that we know we need a wide receiver. And then we also heard the other day that they're not going to be attacking wide receivers in free agency, which tells me they have some sort of plan that in the draft that they're targeting a few guys that they feel like could be available to them at maybe at 27, maybe in the second round. But if Bateman falls to 27, I think they'd be stupid not to go to the board and take him. Like, I think I'm with you, Yates. Bateman I think I have him as my number 12 overall prospect. I love him. I really do. I think he reminds me so much of Keenan Allen. But would it be shocking for him to fall this far? I don't think it would be shocking. I mean, we saw DK Metcalf last to the end of the second round. But
that's what happens with deep wide receiver classes too.
For sure.
They start to fall a little bit back because you can get a good one later.
Right.
And that's the difference in philosophy there with Baltimore. When you look at their edge room, all 4 of their top edge players are heading towards free agency. Yeah. Matthew Judon, Pernell McPhee, Tyus Bowser, and they had another player I can't remember off the top of my head. So it's like the top of the class here at edge is more important than and investing in that now is more premium of a position than what I can get in the second round at wide receiver. So that's why I chose that. But then you talked about Gabriel Davis, and we can move on, Joe. Like with Gabriel Davis. Sure. move on from Cole Beasley too. Cole Beasley's nearing the end of his career.
Right.
So kick Bateman inside, kick Stephon Diggs inside to the slot. Who cares? And get Gabriel Davis on the field, because I do agree that he played well in his spots that he was on the field last year in relief of John Brown. So move forward now with Rashad Bateman, Gabriel Davis, and Stephon Diggs as your wide receiver trio for Josh Allen.
Yeah,
I think
love
it was
Yates.
Yannick Ngakoue that you.
Ngakoue was the one. Yeah,
That's what I thought, but I couldn't remember.
It's okay. It's been a
he
long
switched
afternoon.
teams. He switched a lot of teams.
He switched so many
He
teams.
did,
I was like, I think it's Yannick, but is he still on Minnesota? I have no idea.
No one knows. He doesn't know where he is. He's going to check his passport to see where he's been. All right, 2 more picks here. Boggs, you're up at 31 right now with the Kansas City Chiefs. So where do you go if you're the Chiefs with the board as it is right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna. I mean, we saw the offensive line issues for Kansas City, and this is once again, you pay your quarterback $500 million, you have to protect him. So I'm gonna go ahead and give them Wyatt Davis, interior offensive lineman out of Ohio State University. I think it's a nice plug and play for them, and we can't have him running for 500 yards every single game. So I think that is what the Kansas City Chiefs would do at that point. Offensive line.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. That's an enormous investment to protect, which brings us to the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is still a phrase I'm trying to get used to. Tom Brady's throwing Super Bowl trophies across boats. We're living in a crazy time here. So where do they go, Tags? Let's close things up here with the Tampa Bay Bucks, with the reigning champs. Obviously, they've got a lot of free agents too. They're trying to figure out a lot of things going forward. But in your opinion, what can they do here with this last pick in the first round to make a difference and possibly get back to the Super Bowl again for Tom Brady, which I know the general public would just love?
That's basically what it comes down to. I mean, this team is in to win it now. They're going to capitalize on winning championships right now. So it's like, who do they need? What do they need? What were the things that they lacked in 2020? A pass-catching running back is one of those things. Travis Etienne he might be the number 1 running back in this class, might be number 2, depending on who you talk to. But he is the best pass-catching running back who can play on all 3 downs. And he's a better pass catcher than Najee Harris. But Tom Brady, if you go back to New England, how often he used his running backs, it was a pretty big thing. We watched Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette continually let Brady down, whether it be fumbles, whether it be drop passes, didn't matter what. Neither of them are great receiving options. Ronald Jones has 1 year left on his contract. Leonard Fournette's probably gone in free agency. So we've seen Bruce Arians before go back to Arizona, drafting David Johnson. He wanted to take Amir Abdullah higher in that draft. Couldn't get him. Takes David Johnson. And then last year we heard they wanted to take a running back. His son was talking to the media and said they wanted to take a running back in the earlier rounds, but none of the running backs they wanted fell to them. So they conceded and took Keyshawn Vaughn in the 3rd round. I think they go back to the running back position, or it's like that, or they sign someone like James White in free agency, but they need a pass catching running back and potentially their long-term solution, because Ronald Jones hasn't been able to earn all of that trust throughout his time in Tampa Bay. So why should it start now?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And to tell you the truth, I do think that's exactly where they're going to go. I agree with you, Tags, 100%. So just to recap, picks 21 through 32, we had Indianapolis taking Darisaw. We had Phillips, the rusher, going to Tennessee. The Jets taking Awe. You had Pittsburgh taking Jenkins. Jacksonville taking Horn. Barmore going to the Cleveland Browns, Baltimore getting Tryon, Levi going to New Orleans. Then we had Green Bay taking Nixon, Bateman landing in Buffalo, which has been the talk of social media right now. I can tell you with this mock draft, it is all over right now. It is trending everywhere. Oh my gosh, look at what the Bills got. Can you believe they got Rashad Bateman? Wyatt Davis going to Kansas City, and Travis Etienne going to Tampa Bay. So this is a fun exercise, and I just want to say a quick thank you to our production people behind all of the scenes, because John and Chris did a phenomenal job of helping us out today to set up to do this. And I also want to give a special thanks to our guest, Scott Bogman from In This League. You can follow him on Bogman Sports. He was slated to do an MLB show with me today, but we said, hey, Boggs, I know you're Mr. Football, you're Mr. College Football. Can you pivot and do some NFL with us? And look at him. He is so versatile. You can line him up on the outside. You can line him up in the inside. It doesn't matter. He lines up anywhere, and he does great stuff. So, Boggs, tell everybody what's going on in this league. I know you guys were out at spring training yesterday, catching some games, taking some video of Fernando Tatis hitting home runs. In This League, one of the great podcasts out there. They do all the sports. It's great fun, secret shows. So tell everybody where they can find it and how they can join the ITL Army on Patreon.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Joe. And, you can line me up anywhere as long as I don't have to run far. I'll be pretty good. I have a burst, but after the burst, I got nothing. The gas tank runs out real quick. So, but I really appreciate you guys having me on. And of course, like Joe said, you can find me on Twitter at Bogman Sports. And in this league right now, obviously, we're doing a lot of baseball prep. We just did what we call Hell Week, which is one show every single day, which we normally do 2 shows a week for baseball. Just fired up my NFL Draft podcast with John Lobb as my first guest, laying a base on the good offensive prospects for fantasy football. In that one, the Welsh has Prospect 1 that just moved on in the baseball pods. Tournament that we have going on there. We're going to be on Thursday. In this league we have our baseball show. The Welsh has his minor league list. We have all of our stuff over at patreon.com /ITL Army for all that stuff. So thank you guys very much for having me on, and please check out my work if you would.
Absolutely, man. And Boggs also does all the rookie profiles for the Fantasy Black Book for football. He does the IDP stuff too. He's a wizard with all that stuff. So again, Boggs, you just stepped in and you crush it as always. Yates, parting shots here, your thoughts on this mock, things that surprised you, things that you loved, any other Rashad Bateman fonts that you'd like to throw at us. What do you got for me, baby?
No, I think it was a great mock. It was awesome to get in a room with tags and do a mock draft like this. We've been talking and messaging back and forth and talking about prospects, but to be able to get in and into one and kind of disagree as we go along and agree in some spots, it was awesome. So a couple of players that I thought were interesting that they didn't go in the first round that I did just want to mention. Sam Cosby, the offensive tackle out of Texas, thought he was going to go in the first round somewhere. Didn't line up with my landing spots. Otherwise, I definitely would have taken him. And then another guy out of Texas as well, Joseph Osai, edge defender. Make sure that you keep an eye on him.
I almost gave him to Kansas City.
Yep.
I almost gave him to Kansas City because that's,
You're Mr. Texas. You can see in the background.
That's why I pointed it out.
He's got the Longhorns there, so great stuff there, pointing that out. Tags, how about for you? When you look back now and step away a little bit and have some time to digest what just happened here in the last hour, what are your thoughts on this first mock that we've done here for the NFL?
It gets me psyched. I'm psyched. I'm psyched for free agency. This is a time of the year that I love because there's change, right? Everything gets stagnant for a while. Like we go through the NFL season and then we go through a bunch of BS with bad reporting and whatever. But now is when actually things are going to start to happen. The 15th is when we can start hearing about free agents talking to teams. 17th, it opens officially. And then we have a couple weeks of madness in free agency. And then we move into the draft and we actually know the team needs based on what they've done in free agency. And like trying to figure out, how they're navigating through the salary cap right now, because this is going to be a weird off season. You're going to see a lot of players cut that wouldn't typically be cut. You're going to see players switch teams that really probably don't want to switch teams, but they have to because they need to make the most of their opportunities. So this just got me psyched, man. And some of the players, I'm really proud of this group for not Kadarius Toney out of Florida, the wide receiver. I don't think he's a first round wide receiver. I'm glad he didn't go there. The one name that pops up that I thought would go would be Zaven Collins, linebacker out of Tulsa. He's someone that I thought would go first round, but with the way that the draft board kind of shook out, it kind of made sense. New Orleans, I could see taking him over a defensive tackle, but again, they're losing Sheldon Rankins up front too. So that team they have needs all over the place because the salary cap is going to bite them, but this was an awesome show, guys. Had fun.
Yeah, Boggs, anything else for you? Things that you missed, guys who did not get taken in this first round that were surprising, maybe?
Yeah, maybe a little disappointed that neither one of my Texas guys went in the first round, but I'm used to stuff like that happening, so I wouldn't be that surprised if both of them fall out of the first round. I'm just glad to have a couple prospects out of Texas in the draft up high this year, so that's probably what was most surprising to me. And look, Green Bay not taking a wide receiver is it's gonna be tough. The response from the Packers fans is gonna be rough. Tags. So
believe me, I'm well aware. But this is me telling me if I were a fan of the Packers, I would love that pick of Nixon. Like love it.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's still a great pick, but I think the Packers fans might riot if they don't get a wide receiver.
I'm going to feel the wrath for sure.
Well, look, if you've got thoughts about how this draft went, of course, interact with us over on social media. You can follow him at Bogman Sports. You know where to get tags, obviously, at Mike Tagliere. You can get him at, it's Kyle NFL, is it not? I wanted to stop
Kyle Y, at Kyle Y NFL.
At Kyle Y NFL.
And I'm an NFL too, Joe. Damn it.
Oh, sorry. Do it again. Go ahead. Give it to me, Tags. Because,
it's just Mike Tagliere NFL. It's not that
I thought
hard.
It was Mike Tagliere microphone. I thought that's what it was. See how I set you up? You went right in for it this whole time. Oh, my God, it was so good. I love it. Y'all played into it. So beautiful.
You've been talking to Dan too much.
Mike Tagliere, NFL. I have been talking to Dan way too much. Oh, my goodness. Every day I got to talk to that guy. I love you, Dan Harris. This has been great fun. We hope you enjoyed it. I want to remind all of our listeners, too, we've got that Lamar Jackson giveaway, fantasypros.com/contest. Go get in there. Take your screenshot, go and enjoy your opportunity to win that thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction, one of our sponsors here on the show. Sign up at Pristine Auction today. Get that Fantasy Pros code in there for that $5 off there, and that is a credit towards your first bid. Again, it's pristineauction.com, PRISTINE auction.com. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Bogman, for Yates, for Tags, for me, Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.